Yeah, please. Thank you so much.
صلى على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, before we continue, one of the sisters will present Surah of the Quran. Please welcome Sister Asiya with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. MashaAllah. Inshallah, I would request our respected guest scholars, the Abbas, to please begin the lecture. Please welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Next year.
Which is a belash. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. Read in Surah Al-Anbiya, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَدَاوُودَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ إِذْ يَحْكُمَانِ فِي الْحَرْثِ إِذْ نَفَشَتْ فِي غَنَمُ الْقَوْمِ وَكُنَّا لِحُكْمِهِمْ شَاهِدِينَ. And mention Dawud and Sulaiman when they judged concerning the field, when the sheep of a people overran it at night, and we were witness to their judgment. We have reached Prophet Dawud alayhi salam. I'm trying to present the prophets that I felt that people would like to learn more about. So we went through the life of Prophet Musa alayhi salam in 3 sessions, about Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam in 2 sessions. So far, we're going to go now to Prophet Dawud alayhi salam, which is after Prophet Ibrahim or after Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Prophet Dawud is known to be a very courageous person. And you've maybe heard of the story of him fighting against Goliath, for example. And this was the king at that time said, whoever, for example, fights against such a person and destroys him, that I will give him half my wealth, and I'll give him, for example, allowed to marry my daughter. So Dawud was a very strong person. And that later on, when he becomes a prophet, he is known to have the Zubur of Dawud, the Psalms of David. Maybe you've heard of this, the Psalms of Dawud. From what we understand, the Psalms of Dawud are not necessarily a new Sharia or a new way of life, because they followed the instructions from Prophet Musa alayhi salam, what they had. But these were advice, and these were, in a way, prayers and reflections, and that Dawud himself was known for having a great voice, and that he would recite very beautifully, as we'll mention in the Quran, mentions that he would recite and it would be in a beautiful way. And we'll talk about some of the verses that say that the mountains and the birds, for example, would praise. We'll talk about what that means. So therefore, one of the things that Prophet Dawud is very famous for, besides becoming a very powerful king, powerful ruler, and also living very humbly and being a just person, which is the lessons that us as monotheistic religions that we follow Prophet David or Prophet Dawud, is that don't forget his justice and how he was just to the people. So Prophet Dawud alayhi salam, he embarks on this prophethood that Allah gives him, and he is given and granted also judgment from the unseen, and that some of the judgments that he passes, according to what we have in the books, is based on his ability to have evidence from the unseen. And also later on, he has judgment based on evidence from the apparent world. Because it is usually an exception for a prophet to pass judgment on things that nobody else knows. Usually prophets and imams, when it came to their lives, they based their judgment off evidence. There are exceptions. We said Prophet Khidr, for example, was an exception of that. Prophet Dawud, for a time, was an exception of that. And Imam al-Zaman also, what we understand, will be an exception of that, because he wants to rid the world of corruption. And, when you have, for example, good lawyers, for example, you have good evidence, it is always hard to find the truth sometimes. Therefore, hukm bi-batin, or the reality of things, is needed. So therefore, we look at the life of this prophet, who's mentioned about 16 times throughout the Holy Quran, and we know him as to pass the judgment. We know him to be the killer of Goliath. We know him, as is mentioned, that he spoke to the animals, just how Prophet Sulaiman spoke to the animals, and there's different stories about him in a discussion with a frog, or for example with different animals. They are recorded in the books of Hadith. But what we know about him is that he bestowed to him the rule and wisdom, that he had rule and wisdom by Allah. And therefore he had, when he was worshiping Allah, he would have a beautiful voice that he would sing. And they say that all the animals would approach and listen to the voice of Prophet Dawud alayhi salam. There's a time where Prophet Dawud is the ruler, he is a prophet. Allah, again paraphrasing, in the books, it is narrated that Allah mentions to him that you are good, but you lack one quality. And that quality is that you're taking your sustenance from the treasury, that you're taking from Baytul Mal, and that it would be better, for example, for you to learn to be able to support yourself by your own hands, by to work. So Prophet Dawud at that time, it is said that he embarks on this and he starts, doing something that doesn't have much income. But then later on, Prophet Dawud has been taught to be a blacksmith in order to take, for example, metal, to, bring a high temperature to it, and to, in a way, form and fashion it in a way that it will be armor. And therefore, libas, for example, Quran will talk about this later on. Quran says this will be libas, this will be for them in armor. And very possibly here it was chainmail, to take these chains and put them in a very nice way in order to have protection. And he would sell these for thousands or a very large sum of money. And therefore he became independent of the need to take money from the treasury of the people. When we look at these actions that Allah even gives to the prophets, and we see that the prophets, generally all of them had a work, all of them did something. Sometimes it comes to our minds that holy people should not work, or prophets should not work. And we see this in some other religions, like monks, for example, that they should go door to door and ask money from people and not to work. So we actually learn that one of the very important concepts that today, especially I tell the youth, is that do not think that going to work is something against religion, or that you're a materialist now, or that you're a person of the dunya. We have in tradition, a person goes to support his family, support himself, and he asks the Imam about this, and the Imam mentions that this in the hadith, it is not dunya, it's not the world. This is akhirat that you're seeking. This is the hereafter. You call it dunya, you call it work, driving all the way, and listening to boss, or maybe you're a boss yourselves, coping with the employees or coping with the boss. But regardless, you know that this is something that is very hard for a person, and especially those who are tasked, fathers, for example, who nafaqa is wajib. Now, if women want to work or not, that is up to them. They do not have to. This obligation is for the man. It is wajib for the man to provide nafaqa. When you get married, it is your obligation. When you have, for example, parents, you have to take care of your parents. When you are a parent, you have to take care of your children. So therefore, this nafaqa, which is wajib for the male in terms of marriage for the spouse, it is something that should not be overlooked, and something that advise those who are not married, even when you are students, to learn to be responsible, to learn to be on time, to learn a skill in order to have some income for yourselves. There's so much opportunity. You could just go easily, for example, and buy some discounted products and see if you can sell them on Amazon, for example, or whatever website you find, or come to masjid and sell it, for example, 3 times the price, wherever you think is better. But regardless, we had a entrepreneur workshop that we had for our young children over in Orange County. And these young children were very shrewd business people. They came, and some of them produced, for example, lemonade or drinks, and they sold this right before iftar time. And they sold it for a good price, mashallah. And I thought that, at the beginning, that maybe this would go to the masjid. They said, no, this is for themselves. This money will go for themselves, so they can learn to be at a young age an entrepreneur. They can learn that if you bring lemonade before iftar, or tea or chai, you can make a vast amount of money very fast for the fasting. Do not, these are business ideas that I'm giving the youth, just to know that you have to learn these things. And unfortunately, us as parents sometimes, because of the education system that takes forever, from kindergarten to 12th grade, and then college, and then they say, that's not enough, you have to get a master's, and that's not enough, get your PhD. And you keep going, and then at the end you say, look, there's like a pipe here, can you open it a little bit and see? So I cannot do that, I don't know how it works, for example. But if you want me to tell you exactly from this, for example, historian, what he said on that day and what he reported, I can tell you. But how to fix this little pipe, or for example, put this in the electric socket, for example, I do not know. This is too difficult for me. So brothers and sisters, teach your children a skill. Back then, people would marry very early. The age of marriage was early because there wasn't this vast education system that would completely block off all other types of development. Teach your children how to live. Teach your children how to be on their own feet. Then they will appreciate Islam more. They will appreciate that Islam gives them organization, Islam gives them wisdom, Islam gives them power. Then they say, wow, what a good religion. But if they're always in their own little protected bubble, and they can never have any type of hardship whatsoever, their meal has to come exactly on time, their food has to be, just how they like it, and their clothes washed, no chores, then such a child will not understand how important Islam is. Islam is for that male, for that female that understands the importance of life and see this religion will actually do something for me, not a person who's just protected in a bubble. And that's why we see the age of izdawaj or marriage has gone up because a lot of times the male and female, they're not ready for marriage. They're not ready, they did not progress in a way that you can give them this responsibility. The tradition has this from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, let's recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa Sometimes you see this, you get astonished of the guidance of the Imams. From the tradition, it is mentioned that إِنِّي لَأَبْغِضُ الرَّجُلِ يَكُونُ كَسْلَانَ عَنْ أَمْرِ دُنْيَا, that I have resentment toward a person who is lazy when it comes to his dunya. Wait a minute, this is opposite from what I heard. Don't go towards the dunya. Don't get fooled by the material world. Imam here in the tradition is saying, I have resentment for a person who does not take his world affairs seriously, is lazy. Why would the Imam say this? Because as I said with that explanation, is that the dunya is building the akhirah. The dunya is a place that nafaqa is wajib for that man. And if he does not provide for his family, and his family is always embarrassed, for example, ashamed, then he has not done his duty. If they starve, for example, if they're not taken care of, because he's doing one of the wajibat. It's muqaddamiyya wajib, for example, here. Then the Imam continues, فَهُوَ عَنْ أَمْرِ آخِرَتِهِ أَكْسَرُ. That same person, if he doesn't run for the world in the good way, how I mentioned, for as a sense of responsibility, if he doesn't do that, then he will be more lazy for the akhirah, the Imam says. SubhanAllah. Did you see a person who just wants to sleep? Shahr Ramadan, it's ibadat, sleep is worship. So he just wants to worship, Okay, that's good. Can you do other types of worship, just not sleeping, for example? And then they like to attach, for example, from Fajr, sleeping, to Maghrib, they wake up, oh, it's iftar time, mashallah, very good. But what happens at the end? You become lazy. What about work? What about studying? What about a skill attaining? So if the dunya, which is right in front of you, they don't want to seek it, what about the hereafter, which is far away from us? Then they're going to be more lazy for that. But I myself saw the reality of this hadith, that in most of our centers, and most of the good youth that we have, those who are serious with their jobs, those who are responsible, also when it comes to masjid, they're serious. When it comes to, for example, worship, they are serious, they're organized. You see, it comes together. Why? Because this root is being lazy, and laziness is part of the nafs. Lazy means that person has not conquered the desires, wants to be relaxing, wants to be watching TV, wants to be sleeping all the time. So therefore, when you look at some of the traditions, then you look at Prophet Dawud's, life, and his life of work. He is the king, for example. He is the prophet. But Allah gives him a skill and has him work. Why? Because that itself, working for the purpose of maintaining myself, is a great act of worship. It's something that is good. Some of the tradition says when a person goes to work, their sins will be forgiven. They're going to work. But as long as, brothers and sisters, that work is halal, as long as that work is a work that you do not rip off your employee or employer, for example, it is one that with justice, then that work will be one of the best acts of worship. Therefore, you see, Prophet Dawud alayhi salam manufacture here, and the Quran mentions, وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ صَنْعَةَ labus. We taught him the skill of the labus here, which is, we understand it to be armor, for example. Not only, now some might say it's like swords and stuff, but here it seems like the Mufassirin say it is limited to armor. We taught him this armor, we said it's chainmail in the tradition, and he was sold one for 1,000 silver pieces, and Prophet Dawud did not need money anymore from the Baytul Mal. We continue different verses of this surah that we're reciting. And we're going to now mention this part. وَدَاوُودَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ إِذْ يَحْكُمَانِ فِي الْحَرْثِ. And remember when David and Solomon, when they judged concerning the field. There's a judgment here, and the traditions open it up. What happened here? They said that they both passed judgment. Here it says yahkuman. This is al-muthanna, the dual. So they both passed judgment. Now, did they really both pass judgment? Or did they do munadara, mushawara with each other? Did they ask each other what to do? Because both of them have that maqam of judging. Okay? So what happened is that concerning the field, when the sheep overran it, what they say to some person, and it's usually the responsibility, especially at night, when a person has a flock of sheep, to make sure it does not go to neighbor's property and does not, for example, consume the fruits and harvest and vegetation of the neighbor. And the neighbor came and was upset with them. So therefore, this harth is here cultivation. And here it could mean vineyards, for example. Maybe there, possibly vineyards. And nafsh means to, even though Quran just says nafashat, it means to pasture at nighttime. It means to eat at nighttime. So now what is the ruling? What should be done when such an occurrence happens? Here, some of the answers are this, that these grapes or this vineyard were eaten. Here, one way is that maybe yahkuman here can mean that they both, explained to each other and they both discussed it and then they passed the ruling. Because here we have ruling based on evidence, for example, so far, from what we understand. And there's traditions that support this. The traditions have, for example, lam yahkuma, from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, kana yatanadara. The tradition says that they did not have two judgments because it doesn't make sense. How could one prophet give one judgment and another prophet give the other judgment? That doesn't make sense for us. So there should be one judgment. But how does this work? And how does the tafsir of Quran here work? Mufassirin say here, it was this yahkuman can mean together they worked. And they discussed together and they passed judgment. Another way, in another version is this, is that Prophet Dawud gave one. The ruling was both one, but one way to implement the ruling, and then there was another way to implement the ruling. The way that Prophet Dawud said, now that you see these flock of sheep came and ate from the grapes, the vineyard, what should be done? There should be some damage. There should be some, something that's given to that owner of the garden. When is this? The Prophet Dawud, in some of the books of tafsir, said to give one sheep. Because he said, how much is that worth, for example? Those grapes, how much is it worth? And you can always calculate things. That's equal to one sheep. Okay, you now give him one sheep, and it's made up for. Prophet Sulaiman gave the milak again, was the same, but a different way to implement. One sheep, however much it's worth, he gave him a little bit more lenient, for example, implementation. He said that instead of giving him the sheep, why don't you allow him to use of the benefit, and therefore can use from the benefit, from the milk, for example, of this, from the wool of it, and after 1 year, he takes this, and then he'll give it back to you after 1 year, and then for 1 year, he takes from the manfa'ah, or the benefit. So one said, you remove the benefit of the land, so we'll give you benefit. The other is you destroyed these actual grapes, you have to give, for example, one sheep. But regardless, the calculation and worth was one, the hook was one, but that implementation was two. So these are two ways to look at this verse of Quran. One is by giving these two ways. The other is to say that they discussed it together and gave one. But regardless, we know that both of these prophets, both of these individuals were very just. So we continue the life of Prophet Dawud alayhi salam, and we see that actually there are instances where now he has been given the judgment, and he has been given the unseen judgment. And let me give you an example of that. A person comes to Prophet Dawud, an old person and a young person. And the old person here in the book has that he had a bunch of grapes in his hand. This is the way that in the book of God's emissaries it explains. He had a bunch of grapes. And he was complaining that this young person came to my garden, destroyed my grapevine, and ate from the grapes. And Prophet Dawud alayhi salam in the story asks him, the young man, did you come and destroy this person's grave? Did you eat his grapes? And he confessed. Yes. So now he's going to pass judgment. But he is given the inner judgment. He's given the inner judgment. And Allah warns him. It's narrated that Allah warns him, you cannot bear, your heart will not like it. Your people will not accept the inner judgment, the batin. If I tell you what really happened, for example, you will not like it. So Prophet Dawud gives the inner judgment. What is it? He's informed that actually this old person has to be who is the owner of the grapes. Let me say it again in case people are not paying attention. So here, in this case, there are two people. A young person is the thief, and the old person is the owner of the grapes. He came, he ate his grapes, right? So what should happen to him? Now the batin judgment comes. The batin comes and says, kill the old man. Kill the old man. And people are wondering, what? And he said, kill the old man because what really happened is that he came and he went and he killed this young boy's father. And he took this garden, that was actually his own garden. He took the garden of his father, took his money, so therefore allow this person to come and kill this old man. And Prophet Dawud allows it. According to tradition, this young person comes and executes this old person. The people of the Bani Israel here are wondering, what's going on? What's going on? They didn't know the batin. What happened? What's going on? This guy is stolen from. And now he is executed. What kind of justice is this? Something similar to what is happening right now in Palestine, for example, without the batin. Just this side, they take the land and they kill the people. Unfortunately, so therefore he asks God for help, and this person comes back and he explains. The soul explains. It says, "Look, yes, I, for example, killed the father." So therefore, Prophet Dawud there insists, and the story has that I do not want this hukm batin anymore. Because if I do it, people will be against my heart, or be against with the people, because the people won't understand it. People today, they understand evidence. They understand two witness, for example. They understand today in our courts, for example, DNA or whatever. They understand this stuff. So therefore, batin is something that later on he gets separated from. Let's continue the life of Prophet Dawud alayhi salam. Let's recite another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Therefore, we see that now Prophet Dawud, in one of the tradition has, remember Prophet Ibrahim builds the about 1-story high Kaaba, reconstruction it, and Prophet Dawud now wants to perform Hajj. And he is going because Hajj is now very packed, and he cannot pay attention, or not pay attention. He's being a little bit bothered by people. He wants to be alone with Allah. So he goes to Jabal al-Rahmah. He goes somewhere to speak to Allah according to the tradition. It's narrated that he goes there to speak to God so that people are not around him. He can be private. People then think that, oh, why is Prophet Dawud going to the mountain or the hill? Maybe he's closer to God. And sometimes we joke when we go to the mountains. They say, I go to the mountains so I can be closer to God. God can answer my prayers, which is false. So they think this. They say, oh, Prophet Dawud's going to there. He's closer to Allah. But there's no place and no time for Allah. So the angel comes. The tradition has, he's informed. And he's given a vision of a creature underneath the sea, under a rock underneath, that Allah is even listening to this creature. That Allah can even hear this creature underneath the ocean, the sea. So therefore, Prophet Dawud is informed to tell the people, the tradition, to tell them that I am informed of everything. There's nothing hidden from me. And there's no, for example, going to the hill, that God would hear me. Even in the bottom of the ocean, the creatures there, Allah listens to them as well. So therefore, that is another interesting part of Prophet Dawud's life. Then we see at the end, and we'll be ending with this part. So far we talked about some of the maqam of Prophet Dawud in terms of a king who was humble in terms of one who would work for himself. We gave the advice for youth to work hard. 3, we talked about here, the worship of Prophet Dawud. Another part, and this is one of the parts of the verses of the Quran, is that Prophet Dawud, Quran mentions that he used to, call upon Allah, and it says here, وَسَخَّرْنَا, the same verse 79, وَسَخَّرْنَا مَعَ دَاوُودَ الْجِبَالِ يُسَبِّحْنَا وَالطَّيْرِ وَكُنَّا فَاعِلِينَ, and we subjected the mountains to exalt us along with Dawud and also the birds. So Quran is saying that here it is the mountains would exalt us and also Dawud. Some here say, Mufassirin, when Dawud would come and worship Allah with his beautiful voice, it's as if the mountains, he would say it, and the mountains were exalting because he was saying it and it was echoing in the mountains in such a beautiful way. Others say that, no, the reality of mountains, the reality of birds is that also they do tasbih of Allah. Everything that is in existence is doing glorifying Allah. And those sounds that you hear of animals, in some of the traditions we have, it is their glorification, their tasbih. For example, their la ilaha illallah, their glorification. It's very interesting when you hear, for example, the rooster before Fajr time, for example, that noise that it makes, and these different types of, sounds that animals are making. One interpretation is that these sounds are actual glorification of Allah. That everything in reality, as we have in the Quran, is glorifying God. And when man leaves and rebels and becomes part of the Taghut, he has left the realm of the world, because the entire world, from its rocks, from its deserts, from its different environments, and from the creatures, all of them are glorifying Allah. So we have left the glorification of Allah. This is the plague of modern man, is that if you look in the reality, everything is glorifying him, everything is submitting to his will, except for this insan. His mind is somewhere else. His heart is somewhere else. As if for us, there are multiple gods, but yet there's only one God. But the way that Allah observes us and watches us, as if there's only one creation, as if it's only you. You're the only creation. He's watching you, observing you, protecting you, as if there's one creation. But the way we'll view God, as if there's multiple gods, but there's only one. There's only one Allah. So therefore, we come to now the end, and that is the top part where Prophet Dawud has to have a successor. And Allah gives him Prophet Sulaiman. And in the tradition, it is that Prophet Dawud questions and gives a test to Prophet Sulaiman to answer. Then he will become one of the prophets. He gives him 14 questions. I will mention some of the questions here. And that is one, he asks him, and you look at the knowledge of the prophets. The first is this, Aina mawdi'ul haya mink. Or the first was actually this, sorry. Aina mawdi'ul aql. Where is the place of aql, intellect? Prophet Sulaiman in the tradition answers the prayer. Where is the mawdi' and the place of haya? Maybe you can answer these questions and see if you deserve to be a prophet or not, for example. Where is the place of haya, you think? Where is the place of haya? Maybe if you have to give all 14 of these, right? I've mentioned some of them. The place of haya, Prophet Sulaiman in the tradition answers, it is Ainan. It is the eyes. The eyes is the place of haya. Did you ever see someone who has shame? Someone who is, modest? You see by their eyes, how they walk, where they look at, for example. That is the place. You see, the person that is bahaya, we say. Imam Ali alayhi salam in tradition tells Malik to, when you hire someone, hire with these two qualities. Has someone who has tajruba, someone who has experience, and someone who has haya, someone who has shame. Someone's not going to be like, you paid me less, you should have paid me more, you know how much I worked here. A person who has haya will say, you gave me this much, alhamdulillah, thank you so much. That would be someone good to work with, right? Not someone who doesn't have haya and yells at the neighbors, oh, everyone, He underpaid me, he ripped me off. Or sometimes they go and they shatter and break, for example, whatever they build. You underpaid me, let me break it for you. This is a person that doesn't have haya. So the place to know this important quality, which is haya and morality, maybe if you have more time, we'll talk about it. Something that is much needed in culture today, much that we see, unfortunately, I don't want to open my fasting mouth open too much and on the pulpit of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But today we see it is a disaster. Yeah, modesty. People are confused. Don't look at the Muslims. People who do not have deen and religion are confused. What dress to wear, what to see, how to talk, they're confused. Maybe some of them want to have haya. Maybe some of them want to be modest. They just don't know how. Brothers and sisters, say, Alhamdulillah, tonight, this afternoon, that this deen that has been came from Prophet Adam to Prophet Dawud to our Prophet, from our Imams, they have taught us exactly how to have haya. They taught our sisters, for example, how to have hijab and where exactly how to dress. They taught the brothers what to see and what not to see. And when we look at this very important concept of haya in the Quran, you know, a person was explaining it this way. He said, look, Quran is talking about, for example, covering, and the sister has to cover. Because naturally, the part of the feminine characteristic is to show beauty. And those who have sons and those who have daughters, test that. Buy them both, you know, piece of clothes. One will start twirling and dancing around when they have a new dress, a little child. One will say, thank you very much, for example. One likes to show the beauty that they have because that is how, generally speaking, women are. So Quran, we can understand verse of Quran says, look, cover your beauty. And women are beautiful, but cover it. Except the Quran says for these people, except for husband. Do not be opposite to show your beauty to the people. But for example, poor husband has to see your hair like this, your face like this every day, for example. But when they go out, they are, for example, very, looking very nice and smelling very nice. For people, no, the opposite. For the husband, Quran says your zinat should be for the husband, for example, not your zinat should be, and your adornment should be for the people. And this is a big problem. Look at the $1 trillion industry, which is makeup and beautifying the face. Who wears makeup generally? Who wants to show themselves? At least before 10, 20 years ago, it was females. They would wear makeup. And one of the problems with makeup is sometimes it damages the skin. So these makeup companies, they make the ladies wear it more because it will cause, for example, some skin damage. Now they have to wear it again every day because they don't want a customer that wears it, for example, 5 times a year. They want a customer who wears it every day. So they might sometimes damage the skin because obviously when it's covered, it cannot breathe. These pores cannot breathe. The second part of haya is the eyes, is something that is needed, especially today with the advent of social media, with the advent of phones and devices, is that we also in Shahr Ramadan, and when we learn to become someone who has haya, we have to learn to protect our eyes. And I'm telling myself how to protect the eyes. I know people, individuals, who studied in the Hausa, because I went to the traditional Hausa. He said once I went to a pharmacy to see how some countries are and how far we are from it. I went to a pharmacy and I went to buy something, for example, from this pharmacy, and it just had unrevealing clothing. He said this was the first time, he's like 18, 19, 20, first time my eyes fell on unrevealing clothing of a lady before. And I walked out of the pharmacy, like his first experience. I ran out of the pharmacy. I went out. Why? Because the eyes in many countries that are Islamic countries, it is meant to be more protective for the believers, so that the corruption will not happen. But yet we see today, in a time period where everything, unfortunately, what we see, we're so accustomed to it, we understand our modesty is lacking. And we have to really, I think, thank Islam and thank beliefs because it gives us a point of reference. The other religions have lost it. We have a point of reference from 1400 years ago to know that this is the standard, that female, male, haya should be like this. And alhamdulillah, many people I've witnessed are becoming Muslim is because we have kept that point of reference. We have kept the traditions to some extent. And we know what is halal and haram. But other religions, they have lost it. And they do not know how to dress anymore. They do not know what haya is. So the first and one of the most important things is haya, this is necessarily for the eyes. Then we'll continue. فَأَيْنَ here, أَيْنَ مَوْضَعَ الْبَاطِلِ. Where is the place of batil? Where is the place of falsehood? In the tradition, Prophet Sulaiman answers, al-adhan, al-udnan, the ears. Why are the ears a place of batil? Because what you hear is different than what you see with your eyes. Rumors are spread from what? From the ears. Tuhma, for example, and making false accusations are where? The ears. When you see something and you investigate it for yourself, that is the truth compared to what you hear. Aina babul khati'ah. Where is the door of khati'ah, mistakes? I guess nobody is going to be a prophet tonight. Aina babul khati'ah. Where? We said the eyes, the ears. What are you going to be using soon? In about 5-10 minutes after the tongue, we're going to be eating, inshallah. The tongue. The place of khati'ah is the tongue. Because that tongue is dangerous. Once they say, Luqman Hakim. He was a slave. And they came to him, and his master came at that time, this is a servant, and said, bring me the most delicious part, the best part of the animal. I know you're fasting at iftar, and I know especially those that are raised in the West, maybe they like this, the tongue. They said the most delicious part is the tongue. That was a joke. Usually kids that are raised, they don't like the tongue. Bring me the best place, and Luqman brought the tongue, the best place. Then next day, he said, bring me the worst part. Bring me the worst part. And Luqman is Hakim. He again brings the tongue. I said, the best part you bring tongue. I said, the worst part you bring tongue. And he mentions to him in the tradition that the tongue can be the best part. It can glorify Allah, for example. For us, we can read Quran. You can make people happy with the tongue. And it can also be the worst part, the tongue, because you can insult someone. You can backbite. You can use vulgar language. So this is both the best and the worst. So these were some of the tests of Prophet Sulaiman. Let me see here from this. There's, so far it seems like everyone has failed. Or maybe they were too shy, too bashful. So regardless, these are 14 tests he gives. And then slowly Prophet Dawud at the age of 100, then he passes away, giving room now to Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salam, who will be given a kingdom that will be speaking to animals, who have possession of the winds, control of the jinn. Inshallah, we'll mention this tomorrow. Many people are intrigued with the great powers of Prophet Sulaiman. So inshallah, may Allah make us of those who are just like Prophet Dawud, inshallah. Make us strong like Prophet Dawud, inshallah. Make us someone who is consistently worshiping Allah like Prophet Dawud, and allow us to, inshallah, be able to work and have a halal rizq, and to have a good job, a halal income for ourselves and our family, inshallah. Ya Allah, we are fasting in this month. It is the end of your month. Please answer the du'as of everyone here, inshallah. We ask you to help the madhlumeen, the oppressed, inshallah, to help all of those who are sick, especially the children, inshallah. We ask you to forgive our sins and to forgive the sins of our parents and our grandparents, the deceased. Ya Allah, expedite the return of Imam al-Zaman. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajal.